What up, everybody? Welcome to Legacy TV and the Convo podcast. And you guys know how we've been doing. We've had nothing but the best of the best that MMA has to offer, Jiu-Jitsu has to offer. We've had the legends, and it's been a great process. I'm having so much fun sitting down with people I look up to and learning, as well as getting the stories out. And today I am extremely honored because I have what we like to call one of the OGs of no gi, Chris Brennan, in the house. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, man. Excited to be here.
Honored to have you here today, my brother.
Thank you.
A real OG in the game. For those of you that don't know the sport, go do your history. But a man of many, many fights.
Yeah.
I think over 50 almost, or 49 or something.
Pro fights only had 36.
36?
Yeah, in the cage.
In the cage, yeah. But all together?
Yeah.
That's
it.
That's a lot of fights.
Yeah.
I was looking at your
record.
record.
A lot of good guys that have fought.
That's what I was gonna say. Now your record you have some losses there, but in MMA is, guys, there's every good fighter has losses on their record, and this is a man has a ton of experience. So another blessed day for me to have you here, brother. Again, thank you, Chris. Let's for those people that are watching the show and kind of getting to know you, if they don't know you, I want to make sure we kind of start from the beginning. Sure. So, like, where did you grow up? What were you like as a kid? What were you playing sports? Like, let's start from that.
So I was born in Compton.
In Compton?
Yep.
Like Compton? Like Compton? No way, I didn't know that.
Yeah. My grandparents lived in the same house there for 69 years. Wow. And so they were there forever.
Shout out Suge Knight.
Yeah, I got a story about that too.
Yeah,
but my parents, we moved to end up living in like Huntington Beach first, like La Palma, then Huntington Beach. Grew up mostly in Huntington Beach, but all my cousins and everyone were still in Compton, so I was like back and forth between there. And then later, as I got to be a teenager, all my trouble started, and I was bouncing back and forth between Compton and Huntington Beach more.
Now tell me this. Compton. Let's talk about Compton, because I'm familiar with Compton. I have friends from out there, especially growing up when you did. There's a lot of gang banging going on in that area. Were you in an area where there was predominantly gangs and stuff?
So I was there a lot, visiting my family, hanging out. My dad was from there, and so we were there a lot. My grandparents owned a house, and then there were two houses in front of them that they owned. It was all on one property and fenced in. But they ended up building a brick wall in the front, and we used to just sit behind the brick wall and we could watch go down. Like I've seen people running down the street in their boxers shooting somebody while someone's on a bicycle shooting back.
Yeah.
Like just wild west.
It is the Wild West.
And yeah, it was there was a time period as I got older where you couldn't listen to Biggie out loud in that area.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? Like when all of that started. So I was, not to jump ahead, but yeah, we'll get to it. But I was the second. I was 2 cars behind Tupac when he got shot.
Wow.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Frank Alexander, was his bodyguard.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy
stuff. Yeah.
Wow. That's some history right there.
Yeah.
So growing up in Compton, like, were you into rap music? Like, were you?
Oh yeah, I've been in rap music my whole life.
Okay, then I got to give you some of my songs and stuff.
Sweet.
I got 10 albums.
My son is he's into music like back long before, like way before I was born, stuff all the way up to now. And the second it's playing, he could tell you who it is. And he's got a one room just full of covered with album covers. He's got like 2,000 albums.
Oh wow,
wild.
That's dope, bro. Okay, so you're going back and forth, and then what is it what you start getting in trouble? How? Like, what is it that you? So
real young, I played baseball for 3 years. I played soccer for 1 year. I did a couple team sports, and then I started surfing, and I realized I liked the sports that were just like one-on-one, no team. And could rely on myself. So I started cycling a lot. We rode from Huntington Beach to Victorville when I was 14 years old on a bicycle.
Damn.
Yeah. And then raced motocross a little bit. And then at 14, years old, I walked in on someone close to me doing coke. And instead of being told don't do coke, it was like, here, try it.
Wow.
So I tried it, and literally from 14 to 16, 3 years straight, I did cocaine every single day. Every single day.
That's very young to start doing
Crazy.
that.
When Lucas turned 14 years old, man, I cried because I thought of me being 14, or how I was at 14 years old and how he is. And I was grateful, obviously, that he didn't have to come up that way, you know, but to imagine
a
what he
14-year-old
looked like at 14
doing that. Yeah.
You know?
Bro, you know what's so crazy that you say that? Like I was like you know, I grew up, you know, in a gang area, and, you know, when you're in that type of environment, you look up to certain individuals. And one of my friends that I looked up to, he was messing around with drugs and stuff like that and selling them, and he always had the girls with him, and I just wanted to, like, he would leave me when he was time to do that, and I didn't. Why was I getting left? So in order to be able to hang out more, I wanted to do what they were doing. And I feel like that happens to a lot of us. And then we get, you know, kind of trapped in that cycle, and then it takes years to get out of it once you get in it, which is the hard part that they don't tell you. Right. And you might never make it out of it. You know, I see, you know, people that I grew up with. I had a friend of mine, same age as me, passed away 2 weeks ago from fentanyl. Oh, yeah. And it's like, and I was taking my son to school. My son is actually 13. And I remember what I was doing at that age. And I had the same exact feeling you had, brother. And I told my son on the way to school, I was like, son, don't ever smoke none of these things these kids give you, these vape pens, none of that. You never know what is going on. It's crazy to think, like, at that young of an age, we were like doing that stuff.
My cousin just died within 3 weeks from that, maybe a month ago. Fentanyl was in her system.
And I was telling somebody the other day, if I knew that type of stuff was happening, I would not have done it back then. You know, it's like these guys are dropping off like flies now. It's and it's crazy. Why would you even risk that? What could be so? What feeling could be so good that you would risk your life like that? But I guess, you know, we were risking our lives with what we were doing too. We just didn't realize it.
It's crazy. I didn't venture out either. I didn't do anything else. Still to this day, I've never smoked weed a day in my life.
Really?
Nope.
Wow. That's the easy one, right?
I know. I just jumped right past it. But I did that every day. Never tried another drug.
Wow. Wow. Crazy. So you start getting into, you know, this cycle, and what starts happening? What, like, do you start getting in trouble?
So I was, like, to be real, I was stealing cars. We were robbing houses. We were breaking into cars and turning it into drugs. You know what I mean? Like, hawking it, whatever, trading it, and I got away with it, like, constantly got away with it. And then I met a buddy who was a little older than me who was driving. I wasn't even driving, and he was driving. We were getting high-speed police chases. You know, I got busted at a stereo store trying to buy stereos with a stolen credit card, and a teacher from school, when I was in school, saw me and just recognized me and said hi. And then when it all went down and I left, he was able to give my name to the person at the front. And bro, I ran 13 miles. I ran 13 miles to get back to where we were going. And you know, so the majority of everything that's ever happened to me was on my minor record, not as an adult. Yeah. You know, I've got bullshit on my adult record.
Right.
But I was so young, fortunately, I was so young that as bad as it was all, you know, pretty much all as a minor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, as I was turning 16, I guess, I had just told this story. As I was 16, I was walking to a girl's house, had an ounce of cocaine in my pocket, and going over there to do it. And I was walking through a little shopping center, and there was a 24-hour fitness. It was Family Fitness back then, but and there was like a half door. The top of the door was open, so I looked in and just kind of peeked in, and there was this kid lifting weights, jacked, and for whatever reason, I got his attention. He came over and talked to me for a second, like 2-3 minutes, and told me he was a wrestler. And I was like, oh, sweet, you know, and cool. And I walked away and literally walked out of the parking lot and found the gutter, the drainage in the gutter, and I threw an ounce of coke in the gutter. I never touched it again.
Wow.
I went back out of gym membership, started bodybuilding, and that was at 16.
What was it though? What
Man.
what feeling? What was it that you felt in that moment that made you want to just like? Because there's those moments in people's lives that they hit that corner. For me, like I used to drink, and one day I woke up and I had liver pain. I stopped drinking that day, and it was the best thing I ever did. So what was it, do you think, that made you just like, was it the way he talked to you? Was it something he said that changed your mindset?
It was a combo of everything, but I can't tell you how many nights I would lay in bed with my heart beating out of my chest, in my ears, praying to God, make it to tomorrow, and I promise I won't do it again. Wow. Let me get through tomorrow, and I will promise I'll never do it again. And my mom never knew. My mom, I was living at home. I mean, I ran away, slept in a park for a while, slept in a car for a while, whatever. But for the most part, I was home, and she never knew that I was doing cocaine. And I don't know how you don't know your 14-year-old's high on cocaine
if she hasn't done it.
Home every day.
The thing is, I think the answer to that question is, and I've seen a lot of parents, they don't know their kids are doing drugs because they haven't done it. Or they haven't been around it, and sometimes for a lot, and for the parents out there, you might not be able to recognize what your kids are doing because you haven't done it. So you got to just kind of be more involved. But go ahead.
So that saying that every night and then doing it again the next day, I had a couple scares. I passed out one time in my bedroom, and my friends climbed up my window, and I'm living in my parents' house, and climbed my window, and I had a big mirror out with a bunch out, and they just like spread it around and whatever, and then left, and I woke up at my parents' house, but in my bedroom with all of this stuff out, and I'm just like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah.
So I had a lot of wake up calls that didn't do anything at all. I said they would, and then I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I when that happened, when I met that kid and he talked to me, it just was like a light bulb went on, and it clicked for me. And I was like, man, I want to look like that. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to feel like this. And I was to the point where, the first few times you do it, feels great. Right. Then it feels miserable, but you got to keep doing it, and you want to keep doing it even though it feels miserable. You're craving that miserable feeling for some reason. It's like, what is wrong with you? So when I walked away, I made a decision that was not going to be someone that said, I'm going to do this and then not do it, or I promise I'll never do this again and then do it. Right. So I threw it in the gutter. I bought a gym membership. I was like, all right, I'm going to get buff, Unfortunately, I end up training with a lot of bodybuilders. So I went from doing coke to taking steroids. But I went in 2 years, I went from 120 pounds to 220 pounds. Damn. And people were like, bro, like, what happened? I just blew up. And I won a bunch of teenage bodybuilding contests, and I thought I was tough as well because I had fought a lot growing up, and now I have muscles.
Now you're strong and can fight.
Right. I strong. I think I could fight. Yeah. And so then from that point, I'm lifting weights. I'm trying to stay out of trouble, and I really did, stay out of trouble as far as the law went. As far as I never stole, never broke into cars, never did any of that stuff again, and so in a big circle, I'm now bouncing at a bar in Newport Beach. And Todd Medina is bouncing there.
Shout out Todd Medina.
He's the man.
Shout out my brother Todd. He's been on the show, friend of the show. Yeah, he has. Todd, great dude, great friend of mine. Love that guy.
So Todd is bouncing with me at a place called Margaritaville in Newport Beach. And he's getting me work. And then UFC's on TV. And we're watching it. And by the next day, I'm training. He finds somewhere to train, and I went into a gym, and I look back, and I want to say I was not like the guys that come into my gym now and be like, I want to be in the UFC. Can I fight tomorrow? I went in and said I wanted to fight in the UFC, but like I want to go through whatever it takes to get to that level, to learn the process. Dude threw me in the boxing ring with this 16-year-old kid named Seneca and just split my face all over the place day one. And then John De La O, I don't know if you know John De La O.
Absolutely.
John De La O is teaching jiu-jitsu there, teaching me a key lock and a couple other things. And I was like, sweet. And but I was hooked. You know, the next thing you know, I find out after watching the UFC that Hoist is in California. He's out of he's here, not in Brazil.
Right.
And so I started training Torrance. Training Torrance all the time.
With Hoist?
With Hoist.
Okay.
Taking his classes, and then we became, you know, pretty tight. I negotiated with him and got a 5-minute roll with him every day, you know, and it's 5 minutes, you
with
know,
Hoist.
with the time, with the man.
And at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
big.
And I did that. I knew right away that I wanted to fight though. Like, that was my goal, was to fight, not do just jiu-jitsu. And, so, you know, I trained with him, and then one day, and there was not a lot of blue belts. I got my blue belt, and there was not a lot of blue belts, and there was a couple, 2 maybe purple, and a brown belt named Lowell Anderson, and Lowell was a stud. And the higher belt guys were beating me. Not easy. I was athletic. And strong. Yeah. And now I went from being 220 off the shit, not lifting, just training, and now I'm 185 pounds, you know, and strong.
Yeah.
And Hoist comes downstairs one day and says, "Hey, let's take off the gi tops and we'll just go open hand strikes and rolls." And I was like, "Cool." I did that, and man, I beat everybody. And I was like, "Oh, this is
more
my,
fun.
Yeah,
This
this
is what
is
I
my
like.
game. This is what I like."
That's interesting that he, at that time, because I've been telling my guys like lately a lot, you know, because when I started, I didn't go to like, oh, I want to go do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
I want to do MMA. I want to do mixed martial arts. So that
Right.
jiu-jitsu just happened to be part of it, you know. So I think that it's so important that people that train jiu-jitsu practice that, what you just said.
Yeah.
At least like starting on the feet. If you're not actually got the gloves on and like hitting each other lightly, but you know, maybe the open palm, at least to practice the takedown, to get the fight to the floor if you really want to use jiu-jitsu, and then being able to use a little bit of ground and pound to set up your submit. It's so much easier.
Oh yeah.
Am I right? Than just using jiu-jitsu by itself against another guy that knows jiu-jitsu is like.
For sure. and not only that, something I had to go through with my son when we were training is, how do you hold someone down and hit him at the same time without them getting up?
That's
right?
an art.
We got to drill that. We've got to do that
in its own.
Yeah,
and
for
when
sure.
you're good at that, is like, then you got
Khabib.
Then you got Khabib. Right, exactly. So okay, so you're with Hoist, and he starts doing the open palm sparring, and you're like, man, this is what I want to do. I love this.
Right.
This is fun.
And then, you know what, I was a little bit quicker than most of the Americans when they said you have to train gi to get good at no gi. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
You know, like, it doesn't make sense to me. Every single time I grab a sleeve or a collar or the pants, that technique's out the window.
Right.
Because when I take it off, I don't have those anymore. So now I have to get used to the wrist, the trap, the armpit, the neck,
Overhooks,
whatever.
underhooks. Yeah, exactly.
All of that. And it's different. So I read Outliers and the 10,000 hour rule, right? And I'm thinking, well, here's however many hours doing it this way, however many hours doing it this way, but this is the way I want to do it. And so I literally got rid of the gi completely. I didn't like to wear it even at the Gracie Academy, but I wore it when they made me. I booked a fight, and it was against Pat Miletich.
Pat Miletich.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dog. Yeah.
So this is your first fight?
No, so back up. While I'm at the Gracie Academy, I meet a guy who's got a brother in Brazil, and he tells me about him. So I literally pack 4 duffel bags and I fly to Brazil, and I train in Brazil. I lived in Brazil for a year, slept on the mat in the gym, and I fought down there. I fought a couple of trying to think of the promoter's name. He was a scumbag out of the Midwest.
Scott Carter, right, was the first one?
That's who I fought first, yeah.
Yeah, Scott Carter, Randall Kemp, Steve Oliver.
Yeah. And then the next one was in Brazil,
Delcio.
Yeah. So I fought that guy in Brazil. So I have 3 fights, underground fights. Jaxxon was getting us fights. I don't know, you remember who Jaxxon is?
I do. I remember Jaxxon.
So he was getting us
Shout out Chemo. Shout out my boy Chemo.
Yeah. So we had some underground fights, and then I go to Brazil, and I'm training in Brazil with the best guys, bro. Like Leo Vera was a brown belt at the time. Fabio Gurgel, Roberto Travin, like all the best guys were in the same gym at the same time when I was there.
Room full of killers.
Yeah. And
so you were getting really good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, fast.
Yeah.
Fast.
You had no choice but to be in a room like that.
And I had $10,000. Sold a car, had $10,000 when I went down there. And I thought I would stay for a month and didn't realize that $1 US was $7 and I had $70,000. So I stayed for a year. And it's just privates every day.
Wow.
And I was taking privates from Comprito, Rodrigo Medeiros.
OG.
Yeah, he was purple. You know, like it was Ricardo Vieira was a yellow belt. Like it was a long time ago, 95 and 96. That's
crazy, bro.
I train down there, and they get me a fight down there. It was all the jiu-jitsu guys versus some kung fu guys from the north. You know, and I guillotine a guy real fast. Henzo was the ref. It was dope. But I walked out. Elio was there. Hoyler. Everyone was walking out with us. You know, to the fights,
sick, bro.
And it was just like I was the first American to represent jiu-jitsu down there, Gracie jiu-jitsu down there in an MMA fight.
Yeah.
And at the time, no one had lost, you know, so the pressure was like crazy.
You gotta do it. But they I'm sure they had a lot of belief in you, bro.
I mean, they must have.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
They let it happen. And then I came back. So when I came back, I'm at the Gracie Academy. I book a fight with Miletich, my fifth fight.
Yeah.
And Horian calls me over the loudspeaker. He says, "Hey, Chris Brennan, come to my office." So I go upstairs, go to the office. He says, "Hey, you have a fight coming up?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You can't be fighting MMA." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "It's just you can't be fighting out of this gym. Do they know you train here?" And I said, "I mean, I didn't put anything that I train here. Everyone knows that I train here." And he said, "I need to see your contract." And I was like, "Okay." And so I hit up Monty Cox, who's Pat's manager, but also the promoter of Extreme Challenge. And so he puts something together for me, and I give it to him, and it doesn't say anything about it. And he tells me that I can't fight out of that gym. And I said, "Well, I'm not. I'm just training here. I'm not using the gym as a name or anything, or to get me somewhere." And he wouldn't let it happen. Wow. So I went downstairs, and Mark Lehman was my roommate at the time. Me and him lived in a hotel room together.
Another OG.
Yeah. We lived in a hotel room together, and I went downstairs and we talked, and we had already been, you know, realizing that, man, this is a cult. You know, it's crazy, but it is. And so we take a couple days, and I sit and watch. I study the way they teach, okay? And Horian's a great teacher. He's not a good teacher as far as he's not going to show you a lot of stuff, but what he does show you is very good at talking. You know, you listen to Henner and Hero talk, and they can sell
amazing.
you. Yeah, they're fantastic speakers.
They can sell, what is it, sheep to a shepherd.
That's right. Sweatshirt that turns into a backpack. Anyway, so I watch and I'm studying, and then teaching. So finally, I'm not sure how far after that it was, but it wasn't long because I kept the fight. I talked to Mark, and I was like, "Man, I'm leaving." And he said, "Me too." So there's a Jewish guy there named Avi Rubin, baller, a lot of money. He goes, "Let's go open another gym." And I was like, "All right." So me, Mark, Lowell Anderson, Ethan Milius. Ethan Milius, people would know he was married to Hiani Gracie, but his dad is John Milius, who did Big Wednesday, Apocalypse Now, like did some big movies. Him and a couple other little guys left and went and opened Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu. And from that point on, you know, I took the fight. I fought Pat. I fought him 2 months later, and I fought him 2 months later again. And but right before I left, I'm going to cuss. Right before I left the Gracie Academy, Sam Rand, who was the manager of the gym, he said, "What are you going to do, man?" And I said, "Well, at some point I'm going to open my own gym." He goes, "What?" He goes, "Chris Brennan Jiu-Jitsu, fuck me. Who's going to come?" And I said, "We'll see." You know,
wow.
People are coming now.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. You know, I've had a lot of people that have been involved with the Gracies, and, you know, like, no disrespect, but I heard a lot about that in the older days. Oh, you wanted, I heard a scenario actually that's been on my podcast where Hickson and Hoist didn't like having students that trained, with each other.
Right.
And he told him, you got to make a decision.
Yeah.
So it's like, I didn't understand it. I'm like, you guys are family. Like, you got to make a decision. A lot of politics in the Gracie family.
They're 100%. Henzo's my boy.
Yeah.
Love him forever.
I like him.
He's always been.
He seems like a
level.
Yeah.
Yep, good dude.
You can tell, like, some of them, like, I remember I heard Hoy say, like, to somebody, you're not my black belt anymore. Like, I was like, whoa, like, what's going on?
So a lot of that got exposed when there was an in-house tournament with the Gracies, and they did a tournament against the Machados, who were right up the street.
Right.
And I don't know if the guys at the Gracie Academy won a match.
Right.
They just weren't showing anything. And then Kaiki, who's a phenomenal teacher, he comes to the Gracie Academy, and he's teaching classes there. Well, Jorge would, over the speaker, and he doesn't even hide it. You can't teach that. Don't teach that. Don't teach that.
Really?
Yeah, and making him hold back. So he left, and he took a big group with him because those people that were working with him realized that this guy's trying to show us the stuff,
Wow.
And they just did not want you. It's like 6 months, here's the key lock. On 7th month, guess what? You can do it on this arm too. Like, that was the type of training it was terrible.
They were really trying to keep it, like,
tucked,
and you got to pay, like, extra to learn these. Like,
I was paying $650 a month to be in the instructor program. Me and Layman and a bunch of guys. And
I hate to say it, man, because like they really turned it into like a money thing, and try to get as much out of it as they could. And I guess like when you're the first, family to kind of, it's hard because you got to look at it from their side too. And I said,
sure.
It's like a difficult thing. Like, this is something that you own kind of in a way, and now you're giving it away and you want to get the most out of it. So it's like, I see it from their side as a business aspect too. But yeah,
they had to get on it right away because it was spreading.
It was going to spread.
And if they were going to make money, they had to do it right then.
They had to do it.
And they did.
And they did. Oh, yeah.
Did.
There's Gracie schools everywhere. Hey, you got to admit, like, one thing that they did is they definitely made the sport popular.
Oh, and changed the face of martial arts.
Yeah. And regardless of them being, like, getting money in those stages, they have made it possible for lots of people to make money off of jiu-jitsu.
Tons.
And so we got to kind of, of course people make mistakes in business, and but at the end of the day they did good for a lot of people, and that's one thing we can credit them. So tell me, you had a very great career. The Pat Miletich, shout out Pat Miletich, an OG, which he turned into having a lot of UFC champions as well.
5 off of I was the first one. I lost to him in the finals for his first belt, and then defended it.
So when you look back on your career, like you said, you've had 36 fights altogether with one draw. What was your favorite, when you look back at your career, what was your favorite fight?
My loss to Gomi.
To Takanori Gomi?
Yeah. Just because in my heart, I won the fight. In the United States, I won the fight, but he was the number one guy in the world at the time. It was my first fight at 55. I made a massive cut to fight him, and I made weight, and it was a very exciting fight.
And he was the man at that time.
The man.
Yeah.
Never been taken down. I took him down 4 times. I didn't wrestle. I wasn't a wrestler. But my jiu-jitsu game was wrestling heavy, especially after my fights with Miletich. I lost from not being able to get up from him, from his wrestling. And so I really worked hard to improve that, and my jiu-jitsu game became very wrestling heavy. But that fight was exciting, start to finish. I guess my next most exciting fight would be either Steve Berger, which was my one decision. Mm-hmm. I beat him up real bad for 3 rounds straight. And that was exciting. And then my first Pride fight, I submitted the guy twice in 1 round. The second half of that fight was extremely exciting. I beat him fast, which was good because I wasn't in shape. I took the fight on 4 days' notice. But the second half of the fight, when they made us fight again, it was exciting.
And you finished your career like 2012, which is about 12, 13, almost 13 years ago. In those times, there wasn't much money in the sport, was there?
Nope.
It was like you never, because I always try to, make people understand, like, a lot of you guys in the early stages that were fighting, you guys were doing it for the love of the sport and just, being a badass at the end of the day.
I fought Joe Stevenson for $500, and I fought Antonio McKee for $1,000.
Wow. And both, like,
killers,
bro. Huge careers, and both
Yeah.
are great coaches now as well. Shout out Antonio McKee. That was a great fight for you. Man, yeah, you did it all. So what was the decision behind you stopping? Were you already planning on, I know you were coaching already throughout your career, correct?
Yeah.
And what was it that, because your last couple fights, I believe they were wins.
They were.
Right?
Last two were wins. So what happened was I dropped out of school in 9th grade. So at 14, I had not turned 15 yet. I dropped out of school. And so I had nothing going for me, right? So when I found MMA and jiu-jitsu, I was all in. The money wasn't great, but I also saw what the Gracies were doing. And I thought, okay, I love to teach. I taught all my brothers how to tie their shoes, how to do this, how to do that. I was like always into teaching. So when I started doing it, I thought, I want to teach as well. I want to teach jiu-jitsu. And so even if I'm fighting, I want to teach jiu-jitsu. So as a blue belt, I opened my first gym.
Wow.
And I lasted about 7 months. It was me and Jeremy Williams and a couple other guys that had a training room, basically, because we didn't have a lot of students because no one even knew what Nogi was yet, So we ended up closing in my garage until I had like 60 students in my garage. And then I opened a gym again and blew it up from there. So my decision to teach was, what am I going to, I was somehow, at least street smart enough to know, what am I going to do after this?
It's cool to me that you already had wanted to teach, because I didn't want to.
Yeah.
For me, it was different. I was getting out of jail and I was trying to get off probation.
Yeah.
I had moved out of Santa Ana to Palm Springs for a little while. And like, I was selling CDs out because I was doing my rap music. I was starting to sell CDs. I was starting to do good with that, and that was keeping me out of trouble. And then I started watching the UFC more, and I was like, man, I want to do that. Yeah. And when I got into it, like when I started doing it, it wasn't like I wanted to be a teacher. Like I wanted to just I want to fight. I want to be able to take somebody down and beat them up like that. I knew how to box and all that, and I had been in a lot of riots, one-on-one fights, just like I'm sure you had been in your life. A lot of us had been in fights, so I felt like I know how to fight. But then when I went to do MMA, I was like, oh, okay, this is like really cool. But I didn't have like I'm gonna do this to become a teacher. It was my coach Joe Morera who like looked at me like, oh, I'm gonna, you're gonna be good at this. I'm gonna make you. And he knew I needed something too. Like I was a troubled kid, and he could see it. And I was very tough. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have wanted to teach. He kind of forced it onto me. So it's kind of crazy to hear it from you. Like you had this idea from the beginning.
In my mind, that's all I had. I had to do this because there was really nowhere else for me to go at the time. I didn't have any school background, any education as far as to use for a career or work or whatever. And so I got in doing this. And once I started teaching, I loved teaching. And then I took the way that I saw Horian teaching the basic stuff and applied that to my more advanced stuff as I was learning, and then continued, to teach that way.
Can you tell like all of us, like, what is it about teaching that gives you so much satisfaction? Because I know what it is for me, but what is it for you? Like the things that make you like want to be a teacher. Because I know it's so rewarding.
For sure.
What is it for you?
I love helping people. Love helping people get better, and there is nothing better than someone's light bulb going off when you're helping them.
Right.
All of a sudden they're bing, oh, I get it.
Right.
And then they understand it. And someone that really wants to learn, it makes it so much more fulfilling to teach them and get them better. But maybe it's selfish, right? That I love to teach, but I love to teach to help to see everybody else, feel that. It makes me feel good to make them.
Do you feel like also
better.
On top of, teaching them how to fight, that you're also someone that they look to as like, a mentor
for sure.
in life? Because I feel like that's we could teach them techniques all we want. But I think it's a lot more, because for me, like my coach, I didn't care like what techniques he taught me. He was much more than just teaching me techniques.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It was what he said to me, like about my life, about, you know, oh, you don't get upset with yourself. You know, the little things like that made such a big difference. And I think that's also what you probably get a satisfaction of. It's not being selfish in a way to see other people do well and help them.
So to circle back to the conversation with the guy I had at the gym, who I stopped doing drugs because of, Sean Westover, shout out to him.
Shout out him, for real.
I looked at him that day like he was 25, 30 years old when I was 16. He was 17. He was 1 year older than me. I didn't know. But I thought later, if this guy had that much of an effect on my life and literally changed the direction of my life.
And he didn't even try.
Nope. Not at all. I was able to find him later and talk to him, 30 years later.
That's dope.
And thank him. And, he didn't remember. I wouldn't expect him to, but he was, he was in tears reading the message that I sent him, because I told him, it literally changed the trajectory of my life and now my kids' lives. And so my thoughts are, if that guy was able to change my life as much as he did, how much can I change somebody's life being in the position I'm in now? People already are looking to me for help, for knowledge, for guidance, so if I can give that to them, I'm probably changing a lot more lives, than even the one person needing help.
Right, because not only are you changing that person on the mat's life, but they could be, by you changing them, they could be helping people outside the mat as well in different ways. So you make better. I believe that a coach, especially a martial arts coach, can make a person a lot better human being at the end of the day. And sometimes some people need to get their, but their ass kicked a little bit to, put them in their place. And that's the beauty of MMA and jiu-jitsu and stuff. It humbles you.
I mean, you're here in Orange County. Jeremy Williams, Tracy Hess, Balquatch, Mike Guyman, James Wilkes, a guy, Buck Greer. All these guys were training at my gyms. They all have gyms here now.
Yeah,
those guys all have gyms here now in Orange County. So I was able to do that for them, and now they're doing it for others. You know, so it just spreads and spreads and spreads. It's crazy.
Going. Exactly.
I've got gyms in Europe. I've got gyms in Texas, and it just continues all off of me sleeping on a mat in Brazil, bro.
That's the dope thing, and like I always tell people, the best part of all this is that we get to help people. And then, like, at the end of the day, like the money can't be the only thing. Of course, your coach needs to be able to keep a roof over his head. So if they're making money, it's so they can be there for you. But at the end of the day, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing your students and the people around you be successful and you being a part of that. So I think that's kind of what we get the gratification of. Now tell me this. Now your career comes like to a close and all that. Your son.
So if you look back at my record, there was a gap before those last two fights. In my head, so I got injured in a grappling match with Marcelo Garcia in 2005.
He had a 3-year between June 2009 till April 14th, 2012.
So I injured my ribs in 2005 at ADCC with Marcelo Garcia. That basically finished my career. I fought more since then, but was hurt constantly. My ribs just never healed. And I had been searching for doctors. I was getting cortisone shots in my ribs, in my sternum. Like, it just caused a lot of problems for the end of my career. And so...
What was it, if you don't mind me asking, what had happened?
I had 3 ribs that ripped away from the cartilage wall. And then when they healed kind of stacked on each other. And so they're still like a nasty... I use it as a weapon now from Side Control. I kill people with it.
Yeah,
but at the time, I couldn't get heavy on anyone, and I couldn't let anyone get heavy on me. So I was stuck. I'm not a pro boxer, right? So I had to use my jiu-jitsu, and so it made it difficult. So I fought, but for the last, from 2005 on, I was fighting for. I had babies, I had a wife, and I was trying to, provide for them at the same time as keep my gym going and whatnot. So that's why I was fighting. At that point, I was fighting for money, which is not a great reason to fight. But I wasn't enjoying it because I was hurt literally the whole time.
Damn.
So, we left California, moved to Texas in 2006. right when I get to Texas, man, Tyler starts racing motocross, my youngest boy, and we are on our way home from Houston, and a friend of mine texts me, I don't even think he called me, and says, "Hey, did you hear Jeremy Williams died?" And I was like, "What?" And I go, he was a funny guy, this guy. And I was like, "Bro, don't play like that." And he said, "No, he died. He killed himself today." And man, I pulled over and I cried for like 30 minutes. And it was such a huge hit to me because, do you know Jeremy? Did you know Jeremy?
Yeah.
So Jeremy was very emotional, but hilarious and happy, angry, at a snap. And so
hot to cold.
Yeah. And I 1000% believe that 3 seconds later, he didn't want to do it. You know what I mean? It was a impulse.
Spur of a moment.
Yeah. And it kills me to this day. So I went back, I got home, and I had been training some motocross kids in strength conditioning, and I was making really good money doing it. So I didn't even open a gym in Texas because I didn't have the money at the time to do it. So I was making money from these guys. I was training on the side. I still had a couple fights left on my Pride contract, so I fought a couple more times. But again, I was injured the whole time. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, okay, am I going to just train these guys and make money doing this? And then one of my I was doing privates, and one of my students says, "Hey man, why don't you open a gym?" And he was rich. He goes, "Why don't you open a gym?" I said, "I don't know, I don't want to put the money into a gym out here. I don't know anybody out here." And he goes, I'll put the money up. And I was like, and at that point, all my gyms have been all mine. Right. I never had anybody in on my gym. And he talked me into it, and we opened a gym. And within 30 days, he's out, and I'm yes, but he's out. We already had a differences, and now I'm paying him off to whatever. And but the gym started growing. My kids are 10 and 11. They never trained, and I'm like, okay, you guys need this. Lucas especially, he was not athletic. He was loved books, reading, art, animals. He was just a chill kid, a little bit pudgy. And I was like, we're gonna have you start coming to the gym a couple days a week for self-defense.
Right.
And he says, okay. And Tyler's real athletic. He was racing motocross, and he says, yeah, let's go. So they started training 2 days a week. It became 3, and then 4, and then he's getting pretty good. Tyler says, I want to compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament. And I said, Luke, do you? He goes, no. And I said, okay, cool. So we go the first, and they're even. They're training every day. They're even.
Yeah.
We go, and Tyler wins. And the car ride on the way home, Lucas goes, when's the next tournament, Dad? And I said, why? You want to do it? He goes, I'll do it. I said, okay, cool. So
he saw his brother do well.
I was like, if he can win, I hang with him every day, I can do this too.
Absolutely.
So he was bigger, about 40 pounds bigger than Tyler. And so he had harder kids. Like they were both good. But so Lucas had probably like a better than 50-50, but not a phenomenal first year. And it made him work so hard. And he became such a workhorse, and he worked his ass off to become athletic.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, these 2 kids, everywhere we went, the Brennan boys are here. Yeah. The parents would tell the kids, or the kids would tell the parents, and we would show up and clean house at every jiu-jitsu tournament, and we would be walking to the mat, seeing a dad and his kid watching a video of one of them before they got on the mat to compete against them. And they're studying, my kids. Yeah. And so it was awesome. So once this starts, I'm thinking they need to see me fight. So I call Terry, of all people, because they have events from King of the Cage at Windstar Casino, 45 minutes from my house. So we booked the fight. I fight one guy, and then I think I armbarred him. Yeah. And then the second fight, I'm getting a fight, and Terry asked me something, and I said, listen, I want to be the first fight of the night. And he goes, what? You're a 3-time champion. I said, I don't care. I want to be the first fight of the night. I'll fight for free. I don't care. I fought my last fight for free.
Wow.
Yeah, I packed the house. I brought all my students from Texas up there, and I fought for free. Bro, I walked out smiling ear to ear. I was excited. I was chill.
You submitted that guy too.
Murdered him. And I fought. I didn't even fight for money. I just wanted my kids to be able to walk out and see me fight live in person, and, understand that and what it looked like before they'd see me fight on TV.
Right.
Or their mom would rewind it to show them after it was over and I was good.
Yeah.
But it's very different live.
Yeah.
And now that they were competing, they understood what was happening.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I was done. I gave a speech in the cage. I knew I was done. I just wanted to go all in on them.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, hey, are you going to do jiu-jitsu now, tournaments, whatever? And then the next 3 years, I retired in 2012, and then I won Nogi Worlds in 13, 14, 15, and Nogi Pans. And,
Nogi World Champion, Pan Am Champion. Yeah.
It was cool. And I never got a lot of credit in Orange County, man. Like I was early to do everything.
Right, you were.
And Eddie Bravo got a lot of credit because of Joe.
Right.
And not just because of Joe. He's great, but he got a lot of notoriety because of Joe.
Right.
And there was 3 or 4 key guys at my first Nogi Worlds finals match. I hit a flying armbar and finished the armbar. And when I stood up, it was Eddie and those 3 guys were right front row. And I was like, well, that was cool. They got to see that at least. That was dope.
Well, they're I'm sure they're fans, brother. I'm sure they're, you know what I mean?
They are. Me and Eddie just talked a couple months ago because him and Joe were talking about who was the original Nogi guy here. And it was me.
Yeah.
And Eddie said it.
Yeah.
He said, and that's the first time I've ever heard him say that.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, man, Chris Brennan is an OG. He's the man. And now I feel like an asshole for always holding a grudge. Yeah. And so I messaged him and I said, hey, I apologize if I was ever whatever. He goes, we're good, bro. We're good. I was like, thank you. And I grow it up.
Yeah. So like that's it's kind of crazy, and that's why I wanted to have you on, bro, because I know that I'm ever since I got into MMA and jiu-jitsu, I'm like a nerd. I watched every interview. I wanted to know who was I've had Francisco Mansour on the podcast because I wanted to know the origins of how jiu-jitsu originally was jujutsu,
right?
So I wanted to know everything. So like I was like that from the beginning, and I knew that about you, bro, and that's why I wanted you to come and give you your flowers, because you are one of the true OGs of MMA, period, jiu-jitsu, the no-gi, all of it. And now you're focused on your sons. I've been watching your son, and I'm a fan. He's I love the way he fights. His jiu-jitsu's nasty, and I know he's coming off a decision loss, I believe. And one of the things before we, as we get closer towards the end, I wanted to ask, is there any update on your son, on Lucas? Has he got a fight coming up?
It's December 15th.
December 15th. Who's he fighting? Any word on that yet or no?
Yeah, Mauricio Gomez is a guy at ATT.
Okay.
Another jiu-jitsu black belt.
Okay.
So I love it.
I would not want to do. I don't care how good you are. Your son is like, he's got the wrestling jiu-jitsu style.
He does, man. He's definitely different on the ground.
Yeah.
And I can still roll up,
a lot of
most people.
Yeah, I bet.
I can't touch him on the ground.
He's
like,
good.
He just got my number early because I trained with him when he was little and did it at slow pace and let him learn, and then by the time I started picking it up, he was a little bit bigger, and then I'm like, this is hard. And then it got real hard, and I'm like, man, what the heck?
What happened?
Yeah.
But that's the good thing. You're seeing
I love it, bro.
You want your son. That's the other thing I started to realize, because when I was coming up on the mat, I always wanted to be the best guy. I wanted my coach to look at me like, that's my number one guy, And as I'm getting older now, I realize like that only lasts for so long. Like these young kids are start to come up. You're like, so I go with some of my guys. They're like 6'4", athletic. They're just. I'm like, what is going? Am I getting older? Like, why is this so much harder than it used to be? And it's just the way it goes, right?
And they learned it from the beginning from me, and my style was. I got rid of all the fat, and just kept it very strict on my good stuff. And they learned that, and then started adding to that. Bro, Tyler's been in college wrestling D1 for the last 5 years. He comes home. He hasn't been training jiu-jitsu out there. He comes home, rolls up my whole room. My whole room.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him like, dude, like, what are you doing? Are you training out there? Nope.
No, yeah, that wrestling though.
Crazy.
Yeah, wrestling helps a lot, man.
When he starts fighting, it's gonna be tough to get him, amateur fight.
I think especially now with the no-gi scene getting so popular, we're gonna see like the jiu-jitsu level go even more, because now people are actually realize that, in order for you to actually use jiu-jitsu and MMA, number one, you need to do MMA. Number two, you better be training a lot of no-gi. You better be starting on your feet as well and going for takedowns, which is what I like to see. I can't stand when I see people pull guard. I don't know why. It bothers me. And, because they would never do that in a real fight in the street. So
I'm not going to lie. The jiu-jitsu and MMA is very weak.
It is.
It's very weak.
It is.
That's
why I'm hoping.
Even in the UFC, unless it is a specific guy, which there are good guys.
Absolutely.
Some very, some great guys. But your average person in the UFC, Terrible. I should tell my students sometimes. The guys will be in the half guard with their legs like this, like wide open. Dude, I'll pass that guard in half a second. What is that? Like, and everyone gives their back to get up.
Yeah.
And
another thing,
it is the easiest way to get up, but it is also the easiest way to get choked. And if you look at the UFC finishing statistics. The rear naked choke is the highest by double. The next submission,
for sure.
So you're volunteering to give up the position that gives the highest finish rate in the UFC history. So it's like, no. Am I letting Lucas on my back? No. Am I letting Damian Maia on my back? No.
Absolutely
there might be some other guys that suck that I'm gonna break free and get up, but you got to know who you got.
I tell my guys, even in jiu-jitsu, I say get away from giving your back up. Period. Yeah. Just stay away from it. Fight the guys where you can see them. When you can see the guy, then if there's punches coming, you can block. Like, for sure. When the guy's on your back, this is the worst, in my opinion, the worst position to be in MMA and jiu-jitsu. And the position that happens the most on the ground, up against the cage, it's constantly happening.
Lucas has the most subs from there on his record.
And yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, that's crazy, bro. Yeah, but hopefully, like I said, with the no-gi getting more popular, hopefully we'll start seeing jiu-jitsu get more popular again. Let me ask you this: there's something I wanted to talk to you about today. God has a funny way of making things align in life. And I had actually spoke to you, I believe it was August 8th or something like that. It was early August. We had talked about you coming out here.
Right.
And it's so funny because like I said, I'm into MMA, I'm into the sport. I watch the podcast, I watch the interviews with the fighters, I watch all that stuff. And I watch the fights. And I was watching a show, and it's a popular show that has recently, I think they're a year in, and it's called the Jaxxon podcast. And I'm watching the show, and the guy from King of the Cage comes on. And it's so crazy to me because I'm just listening to the show, and I'm actually getting ready to have this gentleman here at my gym for a podcast already set up. And they just start talking about Chris Brennan. At about 7 minutes and about 30 seconds, he just starts talking about the situation. And this is from what I remember. Let me ask you this, because I feel like especially that this aligned this way, that I had to give you the floor today to talk about this, because I don't feel like there was any rebuttal from you, or, what really happened. So on the show, they go on to talk about how Rampage was getting ready to go to fight in Japan, and that they needed somewhere for him to train, and he had gotten into some trouble. So Rampage is sent to Chris Brennan's gym. And on the podcast, the King of the Cage manager, Tyler, that's his name, right?
Terry,
excuse me, Terry. He says, we sent him to Chris Brennan's gym.
Right. And
then from what Terry says, Rampage says, hey, he's trying to hurt me over here. I don't know what's going on. So they tell him to go train at the Gold's Gym, and then they say Chris Brennan doesn't go anywhere with, maybe he was thinking he could fight Sakuraba, and if Quentin gets hurt. And then he goes, Chris Brennan was showing up to the fight, and he never shows up to the fight with a bunch
said
of people.
12 guys.
Yeah, he was with 12 guys, and then all of a sudden, people jumped out and arrested Rampage and Boss Root. And so what I gathered from all that was basically like him trying to say that you had them arrested. And I was like, wait, what? And I was, man, you know what? This doesn't sound right to me. It doesn't sound like, you know, what's going on with all this? So, you know, with you, it just aligned, brother. I had to bring this up and ask you and give you the opportunity to respond to all this. Yeah. And what's going on with this?
So I did not remember. Rampage was at my gym before he had the Pride fight. You know, he was at my, because I cornered him in King of the Cage, and then we went up to fight Bobby Southworth in King of the Cage up in Calusa, and Bobby didn't make weight, and the fight didn't happen, and we came back. But Rampage was at my gym, you know, long before he went to
before this fight,
before the Pride fight happened. Him and Dave Roberts, it was his best friend. And he's been training my gym. He was lazy, bro. He was lazy at the time. I know he worked his ass off later. He went and trained with Tito and whatever. He got much better. But at the time, he was lazy. He was very strong, crazy athlete, lower back strength like nobody I've ever seen before. Like, I'll put him in a triangle. And normally you lift guys up to like the waist and then up. He was straight back right to the ceiling and let go. This story has changed every time I've heard it. You know, and as far as they're trying to hurt me, I have no idea. This is the first time, when Terry said that, was the first time I ever heard that because, bro, my biggest guy was in 185er, one of them, and then everybody else was 55 and below, 70 maybe, and Rampage was bigger than everybody. So I don't know. No one ever tried to hurt him. Everyone was cool with him. Everyone liked him. Same with me. I liked him. And so he gets the fight, and it's for, I'll disclose. He was making $10,000. Okay, yeah. I believe before he was making $1,000 at King of the Cage. And he gets fight for $10,000 to fight Sakuraba. Can't say the N word, but he said that's N word money. You know, he's still mad even making $10,000. I'm like, bro, it's $10,000. You know, at this time you're making $1,000. So he gets a fight. Before we leave, I have a friend who's a cop and tells me, hey, we're going to come to your gym and arrest him. He has a warrant for your arrest, for his arrest.
To arrest Quentin?
Yeah. And I said, we're literally leaving this weekend. Please do not arrest him. He doesn't even have money. Let him go make his money, and then he can take care of it. He had a warrant for child support or something. Right. And I said, please, you know, don't do that before we go. And he said, cool. We'll wait till he gets back. I said, we're gone this weekend. We'll be back next weekend. And he said, okay. I didn't say anything because we're a few days leaving from his fight. I just want to let him do his thing, and I would tell him afterwards. We get to the airport. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us, not 12. Okay, so 5 people. One of them was my brother, Tracy Hess, Balquatch, I think Buck Greer, and Debbie Purcell. We get to the airport, and we are walking through. We give our tickets and walk through the jetway onto the jetway. Boss Rutan, Stephen Quadros, all of us. And as we go through the door, a side door busts open, and all these cops come through with guns drawn on us. And bro, I'm not going to lie. It was so scary. We hit the floor on our faces, and I'm looking, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And they have all of us laid out, and Boss is next to me here. My brother's next to me here. And one of the cops goes, which one of you is Quentin Jaxxon? I was like, oh, fuck.
Oh, man.
I was like, what? And so they take him downstairs, and we're all waiting for a while. And so they finally let me up. They let us all up. Debbie Purcell didn't even go to the ground until the cop put the gun to her head and pushed her head to the ground.
She's savage.
Yeah, bro. So they let me go downstairs and talk to him. And I said, man, what do you want us to do? You know? And he goes, well, I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna be there. Go. So I said, are you sure? He said, yes. So we all get on the plane. Me and Tracy Hess fight 4 days after we get home from Japan. So this is jacking up my weight cut and everything anyway. So we go over there. We're jogging a little bit, you know, trying to stay in shape and staying in touch with Terry, because Terry's trying to get Rampage out of jail.
Right.
And get him over there. So I'm on the phone with Terry. Terry's cool. Terry's like, yeah, he's getting out. He'll be out. He'll be on his way tomorrow. Yokino Kondo, who ran Pride, calls me in my room and asks me to come downstairs. So I go downstairs, and she said, would you be interested in the Sakuraba fight? And I said, why? And she said, in case he doesn't come. I said, no, they told me he's coming. And she said, well, if he doesn't come, are you interested in the fight? And I said, I'm small. I fight next weekend at 70. And he was fighting Rampage at probably 205, right? Because I don't think Rampage ever made 85. No. Yeah, at 205. And I said, so, you know, and I said 3 times he's coming. And they said, well, if he doesn't come, will you fight? And I said, I will. I said, I don't have any of my stuff with me, you know? And on Rampage's podcast, the first time, I forget who he was talking to, he said I had all my stuff with me, my mouthpiece and my shorts, and I had nothing with me, you know? And so I told her that, and I said, well, she said, if it comes down to it, you know, we'll find you the stuff. And I said, okay. He was literally there the next day. We all helped him cut weight, which was a struggle, big struggle, because he was 2 days or a day in jail, a day, you know, right, trying to get it all situated. So he wasn't eating well, wasn't doing cardio.
Yeah, they talked about that. They said they tried to suck him down, I think, to like 190 or something like that.
Yeah, they changed the weight when we got there, or when he got there.
It screwed him.
Yeah. Man. So he gets there, and obviously they're giving Sakuraba all the help they can get by making it hard for him. Yeah. But we help him cut weight. He makes the weight, whatever it was supposed to be. And I tell him, I said, listen, it doesn't matter if you win or you lose this fight, put on a fucking show.
Right.
You know, put on a show, make it exciting. Bro, he's getting armbarred, tries to fling him out of the ring, you know, bounces him back in, slams him, you know, and he made it exciting.
Yeah.
So exciting that when the fight is over, we're walking out, and the bleachers that go up the side, we're walking through the tunnel. There's girls hanging over the side, bro. He jumps up and climbs up the rail, and these girls are licking his sweaty face. And I was like, I told you, bro.
Wow.
I made you. You're a star right now. I didn't make you. You made yourself a star today.
Yeah.
You know, and I told you that's all you had to do, and he did. We're backstage. He's holding me on his shoulders for pictures. I have a picture of it, you know, and doing all this stuff. Nothing was ever mentioned about any of that. I see him afterwards. Nothing. We come home. You know, I'm in Orange County for, I don't know what year that was when Rampage fought Sakuraba, but
many years ago.
I was in Orange County till 2006. Not a word was mentioned about it. I think the first time I heard it was from Rampage on his podcast a little while ago. I forget who it was that he had when it came up, but he started talking about it. It might have just been to his guy on the podcast. Yeah. But so I'm thinking, bro, now you're telling people that I had the police set you up to get arrested so that I could take that fight, bro. Yeah. I didn't want that fight. Later I did want that fight, but not then. And I was small at the time. I had fought at a lighter weight, and so me and Tracy Hess come back, and we both won our fights, but it was hard for us to make weight because we've been in Japan for 5 days, got home, and 4 days after we got home, we fought. So anyway, the first time I heard it on Rampage's podcast, I messaged him. I said, hey, bro, I said, you can't talk like that about something you don't know. You can't make up a story, you know. Right. You're going to end up getting in court for it. And if you slander me, you're making up a story. And he tells me that he heard that I did. I said, okay, so why don't you ever come to me? If that's the case, if you really heard that, why don't you ever confront me? It's not like he's a flyweight that is scared of me, right? This guy's going to hammer fist me to the floor. Right. So why didn't you ever say anything to me? Oh, I don't know. He goes, man, come on my podcast and we'll square it away. You know, someone said that they knew you had a friend that was a cop, you know, and you had that done. I was like, how would I know that you had a warrant for your arrest for that? And able to even do that, you know, and second of all, bro, I was taking care of you. Right. You were training at my gym for free, you know. He sat on the couch the most time playing video games, you know. But he trained, but he didn't train a lot.
He was famous for that too. He's like, that's just kind of his MO. Right?
Later too.
Yeah, well, he always says it. I'm not saying anything he doesn't say himself. He said he doesn't like to train, and
okay. Well, he became a hell of a fighter.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
he was tough then, not great, but tough, and he got so good. You know,
absolutely.
So,
but yeah, that's still like that's what I wanted to know.
So he tells me to come on the podcast next time I'm out here. So then I'm on my way out here, and Terry's on the show. And Terry is a promoter for King of the Cage that we've butted head many times while I fought in King of the Cage. And he starts running the story again.
Right.
And
which is the one I heard.
Yeah. And he's talking about all this. And this guy tried to get me beat with Joe Stevenson. He tried to get me beat with Antonio McKee, you know, and I beat both of them. And then they kind of had to start coming around to me a little bit.
He said he was trying to get Quentin beat too.
He said it
on the show. He said
by Marvin Eastman.
Yeah, he said he was trying to get him beat. Like I guess that's what you know.
Yeah, that's the way they ran their show. So they had to come around to me a little bit because I'm winning fights, and then I'm fighting Thomas Denny, you know, another local kid from him, and I'm beating him. And the entire time I'm beating him, he's commentating. Talking, he could not stop talking about how well Thomas Denny was doing.
Wow.
You know, it was a 3-minute fight. Like, how good could you be doing in those 3 minutes, bro? and Thomas is cool. I love Thomas, but he never gave me the credit when I was winning.
Right.
You know, I had their belt 3 times and still never. So when he's talking on this podcast, bro, it hadn't changed in 20 years. He was talking the exact same way. And Chris Brennan never had 12 guys to, bro, I used to bring 200 people to my events there, you know? But when I travel, I have 4 or 5 guys, and that's what I had when we went to Japan for Quentin. They all went to watch Rampage fight.
Right.
Not to watch me fight.
Right.
And we all got to go to Pride for the first time.
Right.
You know? So
it's a misconception or a misunderstanding or basically what you're saying is none of that is true.
It's not even a misunderstanding, bro. It's just yeah. So when I came on this podcast, you know, they wanted me to go on that one, and I would like to, but I don't want to get clipped on their podcast that they have control of without having the whole story out there first.
Right.
You know. So we can go ahead, you know, and now that story is out there. If it gets clipped later, people can.
I think it was the only thing, the right thing to do to let you speak your piece, brother. You know, like I for one would hate to be accused of anything.
Sure.
Without being able to be there to
especially being a rat, bro.
You know,
come on.
Yeah, especially that you know, when you're accused somebody of that, like I don't know if people know, but in the jail system, like you can get killed for that.
For sure.
You know, so like putting that label on somebody, like you got to be really careful, and putting that label on somebody is also an issue, especially if it's not true. So I would just be real careful putting a jacket, you know, calling somebody a snitch without actually having proof. That's like something you just shouldn't do. I wouldn't call nobody that. Especially
that's why I don't hold it against Rampage.
Right.
Somebody said something to Rampage. Right.
I love Rampage. I ain't got nothing against Rampage, and I want to make that clear. The only reason that I brought this up is because you were already coming here, and I wanted to know.
When I talked to him, I said, "Bro, I fought 4 days later. I was at your fight when I should have been training for my fight. I fought 4 days later. Prove that. Prove that." I said, "Pull up my record right now." And he pulls it up, and he counts back 4 days. He goes, "Fuck, you did." I said, "Yeah, man. Me and Tracy fought 4 days later.
Yeah.
You know, we got home and fought 4 days later. That's why I was training when I was training, but I wasn't training to fight. I wasn't trying to take your spot,
take your
bro.
fight, yeah,
no. So
and then on top of that, hurt you to take your spot. It just didn't sound right. I didn't think that was the case, and that's why I wanted to let you speak your piece, brother. So you guys, there you have your answer for what you guys heard about Chris on the Jaxxon podcast, and it's only right that you guys also get a chance to hear his side of things, and I'm hopefully we got that out there and got that all explained, brother. Thank you for being here today. The OG of no gi, keep spreading the martial arts. We're super excited on seeing your son fight. I think a lot of people in the MMA community are. And, thank you for being on the show and telling your story. We'd love to have you back. And hopefully we can have Lucas come by sometime soon. And then maybe we'll do one, all three of us together. If there's anything left that we haven't said that you want to get out there, now's the time. If you want to shout out anybody, now's the time, my brother.
just my kids, man. Like, This is Tyler's last year wrestling, Division I wrestling. He'll be fighting after that. Lucas is going to fight. He's got a fight coming up December 15th, and then beginning of the year next year, he'll be fighting in the UFC after that, and that's what we're excited about, man.
Looking forward to it, and hopefully, you'll have brought him to a championship, and nothing but bright things for you guys. Thank you for coming on the show. We will put the link to Lucas's fight so you guys will know the date and his opponent and where you can see it in the description. Cool. Guys, thank you guys for watching. I want to shout out all my sponsors. I want to shout out the Knockout Bakery, Dr. Kessler, and the Wellness Center here in Orange County. I want to shout out the OTM Fight Shop. My boy is Ryan over there. The best martial arts gear in the business. Make sure you guys go check him out. Guys, it's been another great episode. A real legend, like he said it, one of the guys that was doing no-gi before no-gi was no-gi. The OG of no-gi, Chris Brennan. Guys, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Arash Hashemi. For over 20 years, my practice has been dedicated to representing people accused of crimes. There's no criminal case we don't handle here. From a simple petty theft to serious charges such as murder, I have the knowledge and experience needed to help guide you through the court system. Here at my firm, we treat you like family. We listen to your story, help you understand your rights, guide you through every step of the court system, answer your questions, and make sure you know what you're facing so you can sleep easy at night. If you or if anybody you know needs an attorney, remember, better call Hash.
What up, everybody? Quick second out of the podcast to shout out one of my sponsors. Man, after 20 years of jiu-jitsu and MMA, my body's messed up all the time. Shoulders, knees, back, neck, you name it. I only go to one place. They've been taking care of me for years, and they'll take care of you. Home of some of the best fighters in the world, best UFC fighters, best mixed martial arts fighters in the world. Kessler Wellness. Come check them out if you ever get injured. They're going to take care of you just like they take care of me. Come on in.
Hating on me. Hey. And I know it. Watching everything that I do.
Shout out to the homeboy Damo and Big Joker, Big Box.
They been watching, hating on everything I do. They don't wanna see me shining. They just wanna see me struggling, and I know it. They been watching, hating on everything I do. They don't wanna see me shining. They just wanna see me struggling, and I know it. I'm drunk all the time these days. It seems like I'm caught in a maze and trying to make it out with.
Man, I feel way better. Y'all come check out OC Fight Docs, Kessler Wellness. Appreciate you, Doc. You're the best in the business.
I guess they mad when you a grown man. They shoot you down in your homeland. All your face in life and got.
What up, y'all? Come check out my boys over here at the I Smoke. Come on in, man. We got everything here in Santa Ana. You guys come down to the shop, tell them Legacy sent you, and man, we got everything you can think of. Take a look around, bro. Go check out all the products, man. Y'all need to tap in with my boys. They look after us. They check the Convo podcast, and we love them. So support those that support us. All right, peace. West Coast.